Kevin Bacon stars as Jackie Roar in City on a Hill, which just completed its second season. I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with Kevin. And what I wanted to start with first was the swagger. You have a certain way of carrying yourself as this character that is very distinct. How much work does it take to sort of prepare for that?
I mean, I think that the character's walk and the body language is as important as the voice and the placement of the voice and the accent and the clothes and the hair and the makeup. Everything is I mean, it's all a piece of trying to tell the story of who this man is. And I think that yeah, Jackie is somebody who I always believed would charge into a room and would walk into a room with a tremendous amount of confidence, whether it's feigned or not. You know, there's times I think where what I try to get in touch with in terms of his character is that he feels that his power, you know, is possibly eroding for a lot of reasons, but I think that he confronts that with a lot of bravado.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very rich character that I'm sure you have a lot of fun playing. We didn't get to talk about the show with you last year for the first season, so I'm curious actually, because I'm guessing that there are a number of projects that you could have chosen from. But what appealed to you in the beginning about City on a Hill?
You know, it's one of those ones where I read the first speech for him, and I thought to myself of the pilot, and I thought to myself, I hear him, I see him, I get him. He kind of came to me. I mean, I'm not really, a very this kind of spiritual person, but I feel like sometimes, you know, I'll read a character and I'll really have to. I know that it's good, and I know that I feel that I could probably do something with it, but I have to really do a pretty deep dive in order to figure out who that person is and what the hook is. With Jackie, it was really very, very well written, and it just seemed like a great opportunity. I can tell you that, you know, there's been parts, and there had been parts recently that I can think of that are, I mean, just in terms of television. I did a television film called Taking Chance, and I did a television series called The Following, and I did another series called I Love Dick, which we only did one season of. And even though those men were very, very, very different men, they were all characters who said very little, and that's part of the challenge. A challenge that I love, which is to take as few lines as possible, but be able to communicate what it is that a character is connected to emotionally. And you know, when you start out, you think that the parts, the value of a part is defined by how many words the guy says, but you know, you start to learn over time. At least I have it, that you don't. That's not really a good indicator of whether a part is rich or interesting, or you can do something with it. So when I read Jackie, it was great because this is a guy who never shuts up. You know, as actors, we highlight our scripts with yellow marker, and it was like these giant blocks of yellow, you know, that were there. And I thought, well, that's something that's kind of cool for me to explore at this point, having done Taking Chance and The Following and Out of Dick. So that was another big piece of it.
Yeah. Well, also, you know, this is a series that does have distinct episodes, but is also very serialized.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is that, Jackie is so street smart and he always seems to have a plan. Sometimes we don't always know exactly what's up his sleeve. So I'm wondering how much you sort of know ahead of time about where things are going, and if you actually find that to be helpful to be maybe one step ahead.
I do know where things are going. I mean, I'm a producer on the show, so
Right.
it's you know, it's important to that I have a sense of what the season is. You know, television is something that changes and shapes just by the necessity of the fact that generally, although our second season, this was true, this was not true, but generally scripts are kind of being written as things go along, and you start to feel like storylines are working or they're not working in the course of the season. Um, I like to say that it's good. I like to know, but does it help in terms of the playing of it? I mean, if you really think about it, the character, the person that you're trying to stay true to, has no idea where things are going to go. You really are just playing the immediacy of it. On the other hand, I think that I know that when it comes to a series or a film or a season or whatever it is, there's certain things that I want to tell about the character before the story is over for that season or in that film. So if I'm in a certain headspace, let's say, I'm just going to give you an example. If things are going really badly with my wife, in this case, Jenny, Jill Hennessy, it would be nice in the course of time to see another color there, because it'll give me something new and interesting to play. It'll be another shading that I'd like to bring in. So I think that it is helpful.
Yeah. I did actually want to touch on that relationship with Jackie and Jenny, who's played very well by Jill Hennessy, I must say. We see how strange their marriage is through most of the first two seasons, but it feels like they're finally getting to a better place by the end of season two, um, for the most part. What would you say sort of differentiates that dynamic and Jill as a scene partner compared to, other wife characters and scene partners that you've played with in your career?
Well, I think that even though the two central characters in City on a Hill are Jackie and DeCourcy, played by Aldous Hodge.
Mhm.
You look at the poster, and that's who's on the poster, right? But I think that it was very clear very early on to all of us that it was really important to spend time and really examine the female characters in the show. Listen, we know that it for many years it was called the wife part, right? A lot of times it was characterized by someone who was long suffering but kind of standing by her man. And I think that is we don't really have that, between Amanda Clayton and Lauren E. Banks and Jill Hennessy's characters. There's a lot of interesting colors that these ladies have been able to play and show, and so I think that makes the show much richer and much more interesting. And I love what's going on with Jill in this second season with the Jenny character, and Jill herself has the ability to seem like she's very kind of mild mannered or not willing to assert herself in a way, and yet she has this kind of fierce power and energy that she's really ready to wield at any moment. I also think it's really been interesting in this second season that there's this relationship that's developed between her and our daughter, Benedetta, that I'm kind of on the outside of looking in. And I think that that's part of what Jackie wants some of that, and that's part of what drives him to approach them in a different way in second season two.
Yeah, well, you actually have a very compelling moment this season where Jackie is revealing some trauma from his childhood to his wife and his daughter, and it's easily one of the most vulnerable moments that we've seen from him over two seasons. What was your initial reaction when you saw that Jackie was going to have that kind of a raw moment?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
Mhm.
Again, it's if they give me good stuff to play, good colors, whether it's showing that and showing that kind of vulnerability or bursts of anger or sexuality or substance abuse or politics, or there's like tons of things that I get to do with him, which is and that was great. I loved it. And one of the things that I loved about it, aside from the fact that it's a moment of vulnerability, as you pointed out, is that the this is a story. The story about how his house burned down is a story that he's talked about, and that has become a kind of legend in life. And the fact that it was that he had been telling it had been he'd been basically living a lie, and I think that this is what happens over time. We have these stories that especially when you get to be my age, that you kind of tell and tell and tell, and over the years they kind of morph and they change, and you wonder if they become in some way functional for your own sense of who you are now, as opposed to really being honest and forthright. I think that's what ultimately happens with Jacki in that scene.
Well, you also, I mean, you have so many great actors that you're working with on this show, but obviously your dynamic with Aldous Hodge is really at the heart of it. And that dynamic is so tricky, where there's such a fine line between them with the sparring, but also having a little bit of the mutual respect for each other. It's almost hard to define what that relationship is. So I'm wondering if you could describe what you think the nature of their relationship is and how you develop that rapport with Aldous.
Well, first off, I'll start with the second part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the first scenes that Al and I did was the first time that we were actually meeting his characters. And, we did one rehearsal and I went, wow, this is fantastic. This guy is so good and so focused and so well prepared and so ready to, take what I give and give it right back, and get in the ring and just knock it around and try stuff. And, he's just an immensely talented man, and also a really, really fantastic person, fun to work with, incredibly professional and all those kind of good things. It comes down from the top. And I think that both of us are really proud of the fact that we have a very, very good, solid working kind of life on our set, our crew and our cast, and everybody feels like it's a good gig. It's interesting about Jacki and DeCourcy. I mean, you say mutual respect. I think I would probably respect him a little bit more than he respects me. I'm not sure that respect is a word that DeCourcy would say about Jacki, but there is often this kind of need for each other. And there is the basic, structural, political, figuring out the case or having relationships or whatever that is, need that they have to get their jobs done, right? Or in DeCourcy's case, to make the impact that he dreams of making on the system. But I think for Jacki, it goes beyond that. I'm like a moth to a flame with DeCourcy Ward. I think there's something about his youth that I admire. I think being around him makes me feel younger. I think that while I would never admit to this, his idealism about the way that things are and trying to make an impact and trying to do something good and with this system is something that I also admire, because I see that that's exactly the opposite of what I've been spending my life doing. And I think that he truly enjoys DeCourcy's company, because otherwise, why would he keep finding himself in his orbit? And I think that even when he doesn't, actually need DeCourcy, he needs him on some other level, and that's something that I've tried to tap into.
Yeah, they're very good, like debate partners almost. It's very fun to watch. Well, you also directed your first episode of season 2, the first episode, actually, big table setting episode for what the rest of the season's going to be. And that's a big responsibility. What motivated you to, not only want to direct an episode, but the premiere episode?
Well, I hadn't been, I decided not to direct any of the first season, just because I really wanted to, get my rhythm, in terms of Jackie, and I hadn't directed for a while, and I thought that it was time, to get back behind the camera. And I loved the show and loved the cast and crew, and so I decided to direct one in the second season. Now, the reason for doing the first episode was just practical because to me, prep is an incredibly important part of the process. I think sometimes actors will end up directing an episode where their character is kind of light in the episode so that they can, but first of all, I don't want to be late. So, um, I just felt like it was good for me to have the time and not be working, to scout, to talk to the, department heads, to figure out shot list and all of those kinds of things. And so it's a lot harder to do that when you're actually working.
Yeah. Well, then the flip side, going to the finale of season 2, I think it really suggests maybe a new era for the show where Jacki is seemingly done with the FBI. He's tossing his badge in the river, seems has a finality to it. And I know the show's coming back for a third season. So what do you think the future holds for Jacki?
Well, I mean, that we're kind of, writers are now starting to, talk about it. And listen, I think that Jacki is going to try to hold on to his power for as long as he possibly can. Jacki is not somebody who is ready to, sit on the couch or take up golf or, get a sailboat. He is pedal to the metal, and trying to keep running because he's afraid if he stops running, it's over, and so that's probably always going to be driving him. Otherwise, I don't know where the show would go. So it'll be interesting to me. I mean, there's been some discussion about where it might go, but the details of which I don't know 100% yet. But everything that I've heard sounds really exciting. Different for him. As I said, the idea of playing new things, seeing him confront new issues and new obstacles is fun.
Yeah. Looking forward to it for sure. New
Me too.
era of the show. Well, for those of you watching, subscribe for more award season interviews and head to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions. Kevin, thanks so much for talking to me.
Thanks so much for having me.